Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Red Sky Alliance Weekly Threat Brief. My name is Jesse Burke, and I am the Chief of Special Operations here with Red Sky Alliance. Let's get started with today's brief. Next slide, please. On the agenda for today, we're going to briefly discuss the new formation of the Maze Cartel, ransomware cartel between Maze, Suncrypt, Ragnar, and LockBit ransomware groups. We will then go over 7 days of trending, including the latest APT activities, botnet activity, cloud security, blacklists, and Keylogger Activity. Next slide, please. The Maze ransomware group has teamed up with Suncrypt, Ragnar, and LockBit, serving as a platform for the groups to post victim leaks. And leaking victim data has become a new trend, and thanks to GDPR fines, as highlighted by other groups like Sedino Kiwi and Netwalker, it's become extremely effective. Basically, a group will threaten to leak the data and inform the company that they will suffer probably 10 times as much in GDPR fines if they don't pay the ransom, so they're better off just paying it, and the group will also then tell them how they got in and what other security holes they witnessed. I've actually read write-ups from some of the groups before, and they're pretty good. And the way that these groups operate as well, if you've ever seen them in action, is very similar to almost like watching somebody do an OSCP exam. They operate using red team tools and just like a red team member. So in a way, it's a forced paid pen test, if you will. And groups operating under Maze still operate under their own ransomware, which I've shown pictures of their different blogs here, and victim extortion attempt blogs as pictured, and other aspects of running a ransomware team as well. The only difference is when the victims don't pay, their data gets leaked to the Maze data site versus the original extorting group. And all the members of the Maze Cartel group's ransomware are currently not able to be decrypted to circumvent paying the ransom. Next slide, please. So there's a lot going on last week in open source and social media. Some of it will have an indirect impact, such as like mergers, acquisitions. So this week, the movie Hackers 25th anniversary was yesterday, Tuesday, September 15th, 2020. Next up, we had CVE 2020-1472, a remote code execution or RCE against net login. And it was, it was disclosed, and a proof of concept will soon follow. This has a CVS score of 10.0, so it's really a severe vulnerability. And it allows actors in a man-in-the-middle position to get domain admin from a domain controller. Next up, we had the high-performance gaming computer manufacturer Razer leaked 100,000 user transaction data in an unsecure Elasticsearch instance. It's since been secured. And next up, Oracle is currently attempting to enter a partnership with TikTok. There's a lot of reporting saying it was an acquisition, but it's not. And it's basically to allow them to continue operating in the US under Oracle and under their US cloud-based servers. It's still unclear if that's going to be allowed or not, though. And next is NVIDIA to acquire the CPU manufacturer ARM for $40 billion. ARM is the CPU or processor that's in a lot of Android devices, so that's huge. The IRS is offering $625,000 to anyone that can crack Monero, the anonymous cryptocurrency, and the deadline for submissions on that was yesterday. And last, we have a Spring Boot H2 database remote code execution involving the URL class load, and a proof of concept was released, and it will be utilized by criminal actors in the wild. So if you use H2 database and Spring, you may want to take a look at that and make sure you're not vulnerable. I'm pretty sure that one was a 10.0 as well. Next slide, please. So for recent gray noise activity, It's fairly consistent with prior trending. We got SMB and Telnet related attacks with Eternal Blue and Mirai detections topping the list. Pretty typical because they're very high in drive-by traffic, and you'll see them a lot in your server logs. And also we see SSH attacks being observed and reported. Hathaway IP over cable internet, China backbone, and VNPT tops the malicious ASN list this week. Next slide, please. So last week we recorded almost 35 million new indicators listed above. These collections included our threat recon, keylogger, malicious emails, and sinkhole traffic. The numbers on this slide show different indicators in the respective collections. Indicators are available to paid Red Sky Alliance members weekly, as well as our blacklists, which come in CSV, FortiSIM, and Proofpoint formats. Next slide, please. These are our APT and botnet indicators collected in the last 2 weeks by our sinkhole collection. We had 552 unique APT indicators in the past 14 days. You can use your two-factor authentication to log into CTAC to download the APT indicators discussed today. Please contact us on Slack or via email for any assistance. And on the right, you can see our top sinkhole statistics sorted by malware. Sality and Korkow take the top 2 spots again this week, and BetaBot remains in 3rd place. Next slide, please. Spamhaus botnet activity remains fairly consistent with prior trending. TE Data, China Telecom, and Bharti Airtel are in the top 3. Red Sky Alliance data shows the #1 position with Telecom Argentina again, TOT Public Company Limited as #2, and Triple T Internet as #3. Telecom Indonesia is Spamhaus's 7th place and Red Sky Alliance's 4th place this week, showing some differences between our collection and open sources. Next slide, please. In cloud security, we see botnet activity consistent with prior trending. Peak 10 is back in 1st place, bumping Microsoft down from #1 to #3 this week. Amazon beat Microsoft for 2nd this week. GoDaddy and Alibaba take 4th and 5th place. And based on current botnet detections, Hurricane Electric and SharkTech remain at an elevated status, with ONR rated at a lower risk these past 2 weeks. Next slide, please. In the past 2 weeks, in trending malicious emails, we mostly see the use of phishing or voicemail phishing. Surprisingly, we did not observe attacks against Electroputer this week. We typically do it almost every week. And instead, we observed a phishing email pretending to be responding to a price inquiry by Alex Smith, project manager at Boeing. The detection's fairly generic on that, and that might be an interesting one to dig further into. Next slide, please. Our blacklists are published weekly. Here you can see some of our keylogger indicators. Last week, we observed 45,528 sinkhole connections from new unique IP addresses, and we also saw 14 unique email accounts compromised with keyloggers. Please go to redskyalliance.org to inquire for additional information and complete blacklists. Next slide, please. Thank you all for joining us today. The next threat brief is on September 30th. And please visit Red Sky Alliance portal at redskyalliance.org for additional cyber intelligence reporting. If you have any questions regarding the topics briefed today, please get in touch with Jay McKee at wallpacklabs.com or feel free to reach out directly on the Red Sky Alliance portal. Thanks again and have a great week.